Okay. Should be working fine. I was slow today. Lag. Okay. I just saw a bit of latency to start the stream. That's awesome. Okay. So Monday. Over the weekend, I did some extra work on getting um the notifications piece wired up a little bit more. So got to the point where we can register a notification that we want to be told about a planning item. So we have entity subscriptions in there now. And yesterday I procrastinated a little bit and spent a little bit of time focusing on an ETL tool to be able to load the data out of the database and transform it so that I can start to script out shifts moves of data into other databases. That's needed if I'm bringing a brand new system online. I need the data to be populated, so a general tool to do the transform. I got that working in its basic form. Basically, just okay, insert all the records. Also now, skip on empty or not empty. So I don't reinsert the same records, and then ultimately I could do some extra work to say, okay, well, if there's records there, let's check to see the primary keys match. So hence that part. But I'm not going to focus on that today. I'm going to focus on trying to brainstorm a challenge that I have with the system and see if I can work out the best way that I feel this is going to work. So I'm going to close this down for right a second. No, you don't hit exit on writer. You hit close solution. It's going to be one of them days. Luckily this week, another Stream Deck appears and I can sort my desk out a little bit and get some space and then have access to a Stream Deck with control of all the microphone and stuff. Jota, good morning. How you doing? No coding energy Sunday. I don't like those days. I feel unproductive on those days. Since I've given myself a little bit of I've got the opposite problem. I've done a bit too much coding and I've got the wrist pain. I've done too much tinkering. So we'll position ourselves so I can support that wrist more. I don't get really into it very often anymore. Yeah. I, I'm thankful for the fact that I still have a lot of passion for software development, right? I'm not, I do it for a living. I I think I just revel in trying to solve problems and not necessarily going and just doing like I could have gone into building websites for people or gone into, doing um just building a library and calling it quits or something. And I'm like, no, I like to do new things. I like to build new software, use different techniques. I still find it quite fascinating. Does it make it a little easier being a manager? Well, managerial level stuff, you end up with less time I feel like it'd be a trade-off in the meetings. Um, the frustrating part about management part is the when you're not able to code, the when you see people like struggling through something, you can't just jump in and help. You can't do that sort of stuff. But uh, moving into managerial roles definitely, for me at least, meant that I was chasing more, um, doing stuff on my own. So yeah, I suppose in that respect, it does help the managerial aspect. But yeah, but I've always considered it an important part of the profession to try and keep up to date with things, to try and make sure you're not stagnating. Because I think what I saw when I was younger was that stereotypical grumpy, you know, set in their ways developer. Just like, oh, I've done this for 20 years. Why would I change up how I'm doing it now? And that's kind of the attitude. When I started this stream, people were surprised. It's eased in recent years, but when I first started the stream, people were surprised that I'd been doing it so long and I was doing something new, or I was doing something uh like interesting. So that stereotype definitely carries. This is gonna be a tough one. It's drawings. So the stream title is Distributed Design Dilemmas. The reason being I'm kind of stuck on it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, right? And it doesn't matter where I do this thing, it's a problem caused by the flexibility of the system. So it's kind of a okay, hold on. We'll drag this off screen. Okay. So the problem is, so I need to bring that back. I'm not going to play. I'm not going to play around. I'm not going to procrastinate and delay. We have this workflow, and notifications is the piece I'm working on. The idea for notifications is slash was that notifications would not only maintain what you want to know about, so it would be able to trigger that, but it was also going to create the messages for you to be told, here's um, yeah, if I say I want a notification in my inbox about the change to the planning item, it should say, hey, here's a change to this planning item, right? That's great. I want to know the planning item. I want to know the user. Sorry, two dogs just wandering around behind me looking at the grazing cattle. But anyway, so I want to be able to say, hey, communication system, send this notification, right? So it should say something like a planning item was changed. The planning item fixed this thing, was updated by Bob. And that's enough of a summary to be able to produce a notification. And then the communication system would provide that that message, and the client would understand, oh, well, this is a planning item and it's got this ID. I can navigate to that and bring up the detail, and then I can rely on View to pull the actual details, right? Because when you click on it, it's going to show, hey, here's those changes, and I can show a changes tab on the actual on the card. That's great. However, when I get a change, I need to trigger that notification. Well, what if the planning item isn't there yet? Or what if the user isn't there yet? It can happen. And it's something I have to account for. And it doesn't matter whether I do that here or I decide that communications is the one to do that. Somewhere in the system, I have to consolidate this information and I have to make sure it's available before I proceed. I guess this was the problem. Seeing what I think is a solution. Okay, I'm open. I'm open. We do. What did you eat? This problem isn't unique to notifications. It happens anytime something exists outside our microservice and doesn't know it exists yet. Yeah, no, it's not. That's why I'm saying it's not a unique problem, but it's a problem that will exist no matter where I put the thing. Right. No matter where I say, oh, here's the responsibility of building this message. It doesn't matter whether it's notifications, communications, or etc. It's an artifact of the distributed system. Nikita, how are you doing? Welcome in. See if I can describe this. So I think 404 not found basically shouldn't exist in internal microservices. Yes. Instead, the system will create the zeroth entry for that request. Hey, Mr. Jones. How you doing? So in the other systems, so in the view system particularly, I have the acquire pattern. So basically, if an entry comes in, it will populate the data it needs, right? So it will actually create the associated records as empty records, so that the data integrity is maintained, and the the you might get something that's blank for a second, but then afterwards, when it does get populated, it'll all be okay and everything's good. That's eventual consistency. It's still eventual consistency on this side of things. In the case I saw, it was a count. It's the simplest case possible. So if this planning item comes in and it has a user attached to it, so the view has the expectation would be the planning item can join on the users, because again, in this instance, the users come from tenant management. They don't come from planning. So planning has no knowledge of the user, specifically just an identifier. So the view is the one that's going to consolidate that information together. If it comes in and the user hasn't actually managed to get to the view yet, it'll say, oh, can you get me the ID for this user with this identifier? And it says, oh no, that user doesn't exist. Okay, let's create an empty record for that user with that identifier. Now we're good. Here's the ID back. So now you can create a foreign key, not an implied foreign key reference off an ID, which keeps it faster rather than using GUIDs everywhere. And now when the tenant management message comes in, it'll, oh, have I got this identifier? Yeah, I do. Okay, let's populate the information. So the system will become eventually consistent. The challenge with this is it's not the associated data that I'm actually concerned with. It's the fact that I'm trying to build a message out to someone and I may or may not have the data to build the notification yet. So should I proceed and make a notification? Well, I can't because I can't pull the information together. So I can't send that notification until I've got consistency with the system, because I don't have enough information to tell them, oh, Bob was the one that did this change and it's against this planning item, because I might not have that information yet. So it's almost like I need to build something to say, okay, well, I don't have enough information. Let's requeue this. Let's queue this message back until we do have it. It's like an interface change on another system or a new message happens and notifications won't know how to display it. So notifications isn't responsible for necessarily display, but it's responsible for consolidating the information into a notification. Communication, again, I don't want to move this to communications, because to me, communications shouldn't know about anybody. It should just be told, here, I need to send this sort of thing, store this information so that people can access it, or actually email it, or SMS or whatever. So communications is this hub. But it might be that tenant management link, or the tenant management topic's been corrupted or something and is not processing messages properly, or yeah. So I thought maybe this is done, but the send could also send a message and how to display the message. So what the intention of this message is going to look something like this, right? So the target is, it's a planning item with this identifier, right? So I want to indicate that it's got a target identity, because a target entity, because that's what will allow me to create the link on the client side ultimately. And it's up to the client to figure out what that means. The recipient is who I'm sending it to. So technically, I don't need their name because I know who they are. So I don't need this information. I can get away without this part. I swear my dog wants to be a recycling center. The sender, though, is something I need. So I need to be able to query this information. So right now, what I did is I created actually on the entity subscription, I actually created a reference to the subscriber, but I don't actually need this information because this actually is irrelevant. But it's gonna, in this case, I'm gonna, in pass one, all it's going to do is send an inbox message to the communications hub. So the idea is communications is going to have a GraphQL component to it, which is going to expose like an inbox messaging thing. And then on the client, we're going to show a list of messages. So for you, so if you have a subscription to a planning item and something changes about that planning item, you'll get told, or something changed, if it wasn't you that's the send, if you didn't make the change. Um, Although in version 1, we just want to see the messages. So if we subscribe to something, even if we change it, we should get told. Is it just a string with, yes, it is. That that sentence makes me think you're going somewhere with that. With templating. Um, but the problem is, and maybe I'm just not. So here's how I could solve it. Here's how I could actually solve this problem using that technique. If I don't put a GraphQL API here and view is the only thing that the client sees. If I produce a notification with placeholders, so I don't need the data, I just need the placeholders, the identifiers of the things I need to talk about. Communications is the one that prepares the actual inbox message, right? But then communications is useless for this part. And then that's a direct command to there. And if I send the inbox message to the view, right, then the view can actually over-designed it. And that's an issue. That's an issue you get with this sort of thing, right? Because what I'm trying to do is build a system. I have a general idea of what I want the system to do, but I'm actually solving the problems as I come up against them. I've got to choose time and energy. And if I do this, then I actually don't need to subscribe to extra pieces of information, right? Which is good. That's actually a good thing, because I actually then know I don't know much more about the system and I don't have that dependency. So it's not a bad problem to have to remove those things. If I allow the notifications to send to there and there, so if it needs to do a general communication, like an email or a text or something like that, then that would work. But the problem is, again, the communications would now have to consume that information to assemble the information and end up with a templating thing in two places. But well, the problem is the responsibility of notifications expands, right? So the responsibility of notifications isn't just send this message to this point. It's okay, how do you want to be notified? When do you want to be notified? What sort of change do you want to be notified about? So there is a lot of information that's going to go into notifications because you'll be able to say, I care about the review date changing to more than 7 days in the future, or I care about the assigned user being set on this project, etc. The idea will be that you can flex that. So that's why notifications is actually quite a complicated component. Um, I'm just starting simple, right? But if I do it that way, which does make sense to some respect, I kind of yeah, the user settings are the complicated part. So notifications is a component of its own, and that's why I'm not. That's why I immediately was happy to say, okay, well, what if that arrow goes there? And I think I had an arrow there originally, and go with the templating idea. But if I go with the templating idea, um, how does it know whether to send the notification and how? Okay, so in the first version, the user has created a subscription, right? So version number one, I just say I'm interested in this thing. So I click a little icon on the client and it says, okay, by the way, for this entity, this person cares, right? So this person cares about these three planning items, right? Those are subscriptions to those items. So I'll be told about those things. As I make this is why I'm doing it this way first, so that I can solve some of these problems, make sure I've got the message flow for the inbox working, and then I'll be able to now layer on top of that a set of rules. So it won't just be, okay, who's subscribed, right? It'll be how granular that subscription is. But I'm not trying to over-engineer those components until I get to that point. So if I go with the templating idea, which I don't necessarily dislike because it actually is a solid solution, I still then have the problem of then I have the issue in that I now have to, which is a more realistic problem. Now these arrows don't go there, they go here because communications now needs to know about that information. So because it's going to do emails, right? And that's not a view concern. That's an email. That's a communication. If it does an SMS or something, it needs to know who. It needs to know what. So it consumes the information it's going to produce notifications about. So then I end up with a templating concept in two systems, which isn't horrible. It's something I could break out as its own components. Because if I have to pull all that information in, I don't need that one there because I can send a notification and use the templating all in communications. I still end up with this. I still end up with the same problem, by the way. I still end up with the I can't show enough information. Um, so if I put it here, right, and now it's the responsibility of communications to consolidate that information, right? That notification can't become active until all the information is relevant for it, right? So is do I send the notification? Do I kind of wait on the information to become available to send the notification, or do I wait on the information for it to become active? It's probably easier the second way. And the thing is, the reason why it's a dilemma is because I'm trying to make sure that, well, it feels like a problem that I shouldn't have. So it feels like I'm fighting a difficulty that means that I'm doing something wrong at some point. Um, and and B, I don't want to mess this up because it's the first part. The view is the website. Oh, wouldn't the user directly change the setting in the view that tells notification track this thing? No, no. The view is meant to be the data that is, it's the GraphQL API primarily to the user to present the information. It's not a system that should have, it's not intended to have responsibility. It's meant to consolidate information. So that's why I'm not opposed to the idea of having this understand how to construct the template and do the inbox because it is kind of a view aspect. I was going to put it as a separate layer on communications, like, just like GraphQL component of communications, but it does kind of make sense here because all the information should be here, right? So I could actually know when I send this communication, is all the information valid? Because I can actually just send the references for the things. Um, and I'm okay with it saying send to inbox and view having the inbox and send the SMS, send whatever. But if I do it that way, then I also have to say, um, you know, this actually has to have some of that information. So something would get changed in planning that would tell notifications we want a notification for X thing. Um, well, notifications would decide, yeah. But so I change a planning item. So I make a request to update the review date on a planning item. Right, it goes into the planning system. It publishes out the integration event. That integration event is consumed by changes. Changes says, oh, the review date changed. Let's publish an actual change for this entity, and made by user X. It then goes to changes. Notification subscribes to that topic. It consumes that and says, oh, and that's this part here, right? That's the event being received. It says, okay, you've got this event. Here you go. Here's the changes. And then that's this. Hey, Apex, how you doing? Happy Monday. Doing well. Trying to solve some design challenges. Dota's helping me talk through. So yeah, notifications is the center of figuring out do people need to get told about this thing, right? That's why it's called notifications. So I'm okay with it if it has to send to the inbox of the view, because again, I'm sending a command. I actually don't care about who processes it, but if I send the command and I'm expecting to have all the information I need to send the command, yeah. Um, then I need to consume. So If I don't need the information, then I don't need this arrow. I don't need this arrow, which simplifies this massively because now this just reacts to changes and it has an AP. I mean, there's an HTTP component to this, but I'm showing the flow through the system as far as Kafka, etc. Right? If I consume these, then I have to wait before I can send my message in reaction to a change. If I don't do them, and this publishes, so what would this publish? This would publish, let's say, user as updated right? But then I need templating context around everywhere else. But the idea of the notification system is to know that part. So the notification system will dictate what it's going to do based upon. Windows asking me for an update. I didn't hear about the whole crossfire fiasco. So I could do something like that, and then the sender is just a GUID, right? And not a because this would be this would actually be command dot. Yeah. So they're the person who's responsible for it. The recipient's the person who's intended for. And this doesn't deal with the fact that you are the same person. So the latter part should come from the direct interaction with the microservice. If I get rid of the concept of users and planning items in here, then you mean this part? Actually, that does. I don't need a template because the other side will actually consume all the same information. This is just to tell me that there should be a notification. I mean, user already know how to notify them. Well, that's what this is figuring out, right? So if I simplify this, right? So GUID. Oh, that's target entity I want. Right. If that's that, then that is that, and that is right. So that's telling me who was responsible for this particular change, this notification, and which entity it's intended for. That would mean that the responsibility of building the actual thing that gets seen is in the view, which does make sense in this case, if I move this component to view. So the user inbox is a view concern, right? if it was an email or SMS, it has to go to communications anyway. Well, Joe, good morning. How you doing? I think notifications should directly interact with the API. With what API? Finally getting onto the CSS minification. So don't want notifications. What's to the left of the API gateway? That's the client. Again, this diagram isn't intended to show necessarily who interacts with what specifically. It's more the flow of the data through the system. So we do that way. Those two arrows aren't required there, right? They are required to come here eventually, but I can worry about that later. Yeah, there is a link there. The client does communicate with notifications because there's an API level of notifications, right? Notifications has an API for setting up the subscriptions. So this will have an API. Notifications itself will have an API aspect that is configuring what they want to know when they want to know it. The user would say, here's my message template, and the notifications microservice knows what items can be included in the message and have a default template. But the notifications can't build a template. That's the problem. Without having all the data. So the client, the user could say, hey, I care about, and it's not necessarily the template. The client is going to tell them, I want to be told via email, or I want to be told via text, or I want to be told by, SMS, text or push notification, or I want to be told by daily digest email, because I do have a few of those concepts that I'm working on refining out. So it wouldn't be a responsibility of notifications to understand those templates. So doing it this way does tidy this up a little bit, because it means that notifications, so the way it was, notifications would actually have to say, okay, well, I've got this change. I can't react to this change yet because I don't have enough information. So I'd have to kind of push it back down. It's okay for communications to receive something, check all its data validity, and kind of put it back into a cycle and wait until the communication is ready. So if I don't have all the information available, I can't send it. There could exist items the user wants notifications for, the notifications doesn't yet know about. Well, that's what this removes. Doing it this way does actually remove that, because it doesn't care. It just cares. I see this change comes in for a planning item, and that planning item isn't here now. That doesn't matter, because it's just saying, oh, by the way, when it hits the change, this person's registered that they care about this identifier, and they care about these fields changing on it. Well, I have all that information, so I can actually say, oh, yep, there's a notification necessary. Right. Now, the only place that might get complex again is if I decide to somehow indicate even that, I could do it. I could actually say in template, in the actual notification, by the way, it's because of these things. So I could put a reason on that message. So again, reason could be subscription. Reason could be, um, you know, review date changed. Right. So there could be a reason as to why this notification was made. The view side understands how to make that visible. all messaging systems require a template string now, right? With this change. No, they don't, because this just needs to say do this message, and this is why I'm not really disagreeing with this, because now the view, which is called the view, and should have the information available eventually, is responsible for building the view component, which is the template message. Because again, I'm only worried about inbox right now. I'm only worried about going to my dashboard in here, and this will show the inbox. It'll say, oh, by the way, something changed. And when you click on it, it'll navigate to the thing, and there'll be a tab for changes, right? Because this is going to consume changes as well. Because again, it's view. So that's why I'm not really disagreeing. I kind of am on board with this idea of moving the templating aspect away. The challenge it poses is that now to do email, etc., this does need to consume, right? There does need to be one of those there, right? There does need to be one of those there, and on and on. As the system grows, they all need to communicate. The communications needs to store its own copy of that data so that it can assemble those templates properly. Which I'm okay with. Notifications is triggered by changes and potentially monitoring. We'll get to monitoring afterwards. Again, I'm not trying to solve the world here. I'm trying to solve a single problem in a clean enough way that I'm comfortable that it can be built on top of. So, this diagram is evolving quite a lot. So notifications is quite a big component when it comes to it. I'll probably do a different version of this. So, this one kind of shows planning tells communications this is the way to send this notification. Communications knows how to send the communication. Planning is providing the information. That's a Kafka message. So that's the dotted lines are data flow, the dashed lines are commands, and the solid lines are HTTP. Right. So ultimately, there's no HTTP communication beyond the first layer, the first APIs, because technically there is. Again, there's notifications is configured in here as well. It doesn't have relevancy because it doesn't trigger anything off this. That's why it's not there. But there is an HTTP part of notifications, which is that API. But planning wouldn't tell communications how the way. Communications would understand that, Yeah. So now, because if I move this to this templating idea, both these components need some form of understanding of templating, right? This is a simple one. This is just a simple message. This can actually be built very quickly. It doesn't need any complicated. I can actually assemble that message without any real templates. This will probably need templating, but it will need the information to assemble that information. How is notifications communications different? So notifications to communications is that would be send an email, because it sort of looks like a middleman. So again, the reason I've broken out notifications versus communications is notifications is what do I want to be told and in what circumstance. Communications is the provider of doing those notifications, right? So the notification system is the one that's going to say, oh, I need to send, this person said they wants to see an email daily, and they want to say, That's why monitoring may actually have an arrow here to here, right? Because monitoring is going to trigger events that notifications picks up on as well. Yeah, so communications might be, well, communications not might be, will be SMS, email primarily now. Because if we put client notifications, there could be another aspect, but if we put the inbox of the user, say, in the view, because it is a view concern, right? When they go to this dashboard, they should see the messages, and that's what they've been told about. There'll just be a feed of, you know, this would say user Bob changed this planning item because you've actually subscribed to that planning item, right? But this would be responsible for constructing emails and doing all that. And it's also, again, when a user's onboarded, this sends the email for that. So tenant management sends a message to communications, please send an email. So a component of the system that needs to send direct communication to the customer or to the users is going to go through communications. That way, that can all be traced, it can all be tracked, it can be monitored independently. There's monitor, pick up, create, delete, where changes is just edit. So monitoring, the idea there is if you want to do something like, and it kind of is an aspect of notifications, but monitoring is more of a, I care that this thing hasn't been touched in 7 days, right? So it's kind of, or I care if a user hasn't moved a card or the review date has sat, it's been past due for more than 7 days, etc. So it's more, and that's why it's in the dash lines right now, because it's not even thought out very much. But the idea there is that would kind of long running checks on the system. Yeah. So that's kind of like an aging check more than anything. Or if I mean, that's the primary use case, right? The primary use case is things aren't moving. We need to know that they're not moving. So I'm in two minds as to whether monitoring directly sends an email, because actually, actually no, that doesn't need to be there. That could just be an event. The monitoring event and notifications knows how to tell people about things. So you can actually say, okay, when something has gone bigger than 7 days, I need to know about it. So the monitoring is watching it, and notifications is triggered off it. And then again, notifications is the thing, because notifications is the channel now. That cleans that up a lot. I somewhat still wonder if notifications should be a shared kernel, which I know you said no, it's not before. The problem is it has a lot more behavior. It has behavior. Shared kernel is really for like there is a shared kernel in the system, right? And it's the commonly used components. It's the definitions, the contracts, etc. But there's no behavior specifically in here, right? These are things that parts of the system need to know about. The only two that actually have behavior is here, and I'm not even sure they're necessarily they're shared kernel because they're on every DB context because they monitor changes and do domain events. So right, so there'd be a weird dependent. Yeah, so I don't think it is a shared kernel. I think it's in the right place, and I am convinced that it is the right design in terms of its ownership of the data it has and its behavior. And I think this does move it forward. Because this allows it, when a change comes in, if a user cares about it, it's going to send the push. It's going to send the notification. Now, again, this is a hard line, but the actual code doesn't know about that piece. right? It just sends a command, send to user inbox, right? So there'll only be one receiver for send to user inbox, right? And that'll be the view. If I mean send to email, this will be sent to email. And it might actually look, those messages might look almost identical. Now I could attach reason, I could attach all sorts here. I'll see what that looks like when I get to it. But yeah. And again, this is right now dealing with a planning item change. Ultimately, this is actually going to need to be some way more complicated because it's going to have to be, okay, what are the rules? Let's figure out the rules and figure out what notifications we're going to have to fire. Because you might want an email and an inbox message. Notifications will be a series of lambdas or something. Yeah, there'll be some delayed components in there for certain. Um, like daily digest emails, things like that are going to need, there's going to be schedule components to this. But again, like I said, I'm starting really simple. There's a lot more to this piece. Notifications is an actual. Yeah, potentially. If they say they care. If they want a daily digest email, then it's going to say, okay, now we need to monitor for this user. So right now, this isn't consuming changes. All it's doing, well, it's not consuming them and it's not in that it's not storing them. But ultimately, notifications is also going to have to figure out how to store that so it can tell people. I've seen so many uses for that in my day today. Yeah. So imagine if you say, okay, I want to be told daily about review dates changing on items attached to planning projects, or I want to receive a notification on a planning item being assigned to me on the API project, but I need to be told, you know, about API projects in a daily email, right? So the granularity of the reporting is part of what I'm trying to build because it's something that I think it, it runs the risk of being too complicated and more than people would need. But I'd rather build in that functionality because I know that certain things exist, right? The need to be able to say, um, what changed today? The need to be able to say, oh, I care about, there's a major initiative. I care about that initiative. Therefore, I need to be told when planning items are expiring or they haven't been updated in a week, or the requirements haven't changed, etc. Because you want to keep an eye on those things. And again, those are the sorts of things that get lost in the mix, and people are like, you know, my favorite phrase, where are we with this? Because it's what people ask, right? So that's what I'm trying to develop is a system that will allow me to flex that and grow into it because it's going to be a lot of data. Um, I can see notifications being the busiest component of the entire system. But right now, on a change to a planning item that I'm subscribed to, I think we will, from the start, put that in that it's going to be all right after work. Delta, thank you very much. Thank you for talking this through with me. I do feel that I've got somewhere with this now. I'm in a happier place with it. So I appreciate it. Have a great day. let's go and edit. So let's go make sure. So where do I send the other command? The other command I send from tenant management. MassTransit. I don't think I have to do anything clever. Service bus. Yes, we do. We do need to do something clever. Okay. That's what I was concerned about. So in notifications, we need service bus. Oh, no, we don't. Not there. Not in that side of things. So this is sent from the consumer layer, not from the application layer, this particular notification. So let's do service bus configuration. And then let's copy that into there. Nice. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I like the new screen music. Thank you. Kind of been tinkering with it. Moving to a single PC for streaming meant I didn't get to move all my other stuff over, and I can't have the two PCs on in the heat. So I was forced to do it all. Okay. We might be okay. So we're gonna add that. We're gonna add MassTransit. And this is send to user inbox. Send user inbox. Okay, so this is a convention. Basically, this is when I send this command, it's going to end up at this inbox queue, and that way I can subscribe to that on the other side. So I haven't solved my problem outright here. what I've done is made it more acceptable to retain information and um, um, be able to validate it before I actually show a user. So I don't actually have to wait on anything. I don't have to introduce a risky process. So by doing it this way, and I appreciate Dota walking me through that because it did help me think it through a lot. Before I was in a situation where if the change came in and I didn't have that information yet, how do I produce that notification? Say, oh, user Bob changed X to Y, send that to user Charlie, right? I didn't have that information, so I would have had to say, okay, well, I don't have enough information to send a notification yet to send this. So let's just defer receiving that change till later. So then I've had to build a queue and an expensive process of monitoring for changes. Say, oh, well, actually, user Charlie just arrived, therefore we've got enough information, we can now send it. There would have been a very complex process. With this way, what I can do is I can just insert an inbox message and I can left join on the table or even inner join. So I can actually exclude that message because I can't assemble it yet. So I can actually just show an inbox, right? Now, a push notification to the client and that sort of notification, that's going to be a little harder to do because I don't have enough information. So I still have some choices to make there, but it's at least in a better place and I don't have a lot more complicated processes to create off that. So I think, no. What are you doing? What? Use service bus. Oh, because I didn't do it on there, did I? Yeah, because that's not a host builder. I've got the wrong. Depending on which aspect I add this in at, because this is on the consumer side, I don't have the host builder in the same way. This can't be added that way. So this is that. That's that. That's that. That goes away. Goes away. Yeah, I hear they're cheaper. I didn't know I do. That's when you write your own, right? Mine's more like a dodgy unlicensed one though. Okay. So now we get back to adding configuration, notifications, consumer. So now this will consume. I do because after I do. How was everyone's weekends? Notifications, consumers, notifications API, view. There we go. That is true. Okay, so what what we're trying to do right this second is when a change appears for a planning item, if we are subscribed to that planning item, we need to be given an inbox message. So first step of that is, can I get this message to send out, which I now don't see any challenge with. Um, this message now is very underutilized. On that, that's kind of a lie. So what I've been working through this morning, the dilemma in the title of the stream is this whole notifications piece where I want to be able to tell the user, by the way, this thing changed, but we have a data availability challenge. Once you start distributing your system, the data around the system, you end up with a timing problem because you've got, things may be enabled, disabled. You can't rely upon all data being there all the time. So if I needed to send the notification, I would have had to wait for all the information to be available. So if there was a case where it wasn't actually available, then that notification, I had to put in complex processes to deal with that. So what I've done after discussing it is, sorry, I like the bendy arrows. Um, I've determined that I can just send something to say there is a notification, and send that to the view, and the view can assemble the user inbox from there, and the user can be given their inbox based off of the view, which does keep that a little cleaner. Other communications, SMS, email communications, can come through this, and this system would actually have to consume them. But again, it's about, I can now delay sending that until later. I can put it in a queue, which communications will ultimately end up with some sort of queue, because I wouldn't want to just keep spamming email. I rate limiting that, making sure that's under control. Yeah. Sorry, I'm at the office. The office never fails. So yeah, that's what I'm kind of building out right now. So I'm about to start and try and run it, and see the failure. I mean, the success of all the messaging going through. Because what could go wrong when you're starting 10 services? I would JSON file boost bundled in a style bundle. Not entirely sure. What am I missing here? Okay. Oh, things went all sorts of awry there, didn't they? Vacation ends for me and back at the office Wednesday. Having all sorts of fun with that. Man. I've typed too much this weekend. You ever get that pain, that like lovely warm feeling in your arm, in your hand, in your wrist rather? You've just pushed it a little bit too much. Matt's 2 minutes after I go into a stream, someone interrupts me. Danny, hello, how you doing? I need to introduce a command that's basically streamers, you all stream, shout outs are kind of you all know each other. Go follow people. Everybody that's chatted in the last while is a streamer. Or I need to outsource developers.stream. Mojo, you're not busy, are you? Do you want a project? That's a joke. I know you're busy. You've got lots of projects in the pipeline. Yeah, what's another project? I'll do my last day on Wednesday. 3 weeks, 3+ weeks of vacation. Ah, okay. 3+ weeks of vacation sounds good until I read the next line, which is, oh, and I've got to find another job, basically. Dog on my lap, hard to write. These things are important, Kenny. Don't stress. Okay, first problem. Let's start with view. Why did view break? Was it view or view consumers that broke? No, it wasn't view. That worked fine. My concern is I've added some sort of problem in all this by notification start. No, notifications does not start. iMessage bus while attempting to activate. Why is this got message bus? I'm going to tell you to do anything with a message bus. Oh. When I told application to talk about message bus, that's when I told you to talk about message bus. Hey, Spanish Cuba, how you doing? Welcome in. Okay, we don't need that. Actually, we do. We might end up with a shared project inside of very interesting. I'm going to put this in place. I don't think I need to put this in place. So the API should never do this send. But I think if I don't configure it, it should error. Let us Rust, how are you? Doing good. I'm trying to get my dependencies all lined up to try and test some service bus messaging. Helps if you add it. helps if you actually use the method that you just created. So it was learning Rust. I did tinker with Rust the other week to consume Kafka. Pretty fun, except I couldn't get it to actually compile because it kept complaining about SSL. Because I'm doing it on. I was tempted to investigate using Rust to just what would a Rust program look like to do some of this consumption, to do some like data pipelines and things like that. Because there's pieces of using Kafka where you could actually consume many streams and create new streams, so you can use them to consolidate data. How's the Rust learning going? Okay, so that runs now. Let's set full stack and see the next error. Well worth it. One of my dogs, the reason I had to go BRB before, because one of my dogs has decided that she's actually going to try and make a tunnel. And I filled the hole and she keeps making the tunnel. I've squirted the hose on her. She keeps making a tunnel. She wants to dig, 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 dig. I need to figure out how to mitigate 10 millisecond latency when the application building is doing lazy loading instead of eager. If the 10 milliseconds matters, why are you doing lazy loading? Really enjoying it so far. A little confused at some points. I'm making a very basic CLI text editor. Never seen so many errors in my life. Yeah. Well, every time I do, gotcha. And your performance is that tight that 10 milliseconds is drastically noticeable. Okay. Let's see. 10 milliseconds per request. Okay. True. True. If you're doing one object at a time, yeah. Not doing, I assume you're not querying and then. Okay, so make it lazily. Okay. I was catching up. I was catching up. I don't normally do lazy loading. So one of the benefits I've had with the GraphQL side of things here is what I've done on the GraphQL side is I've actually, for the view database, I did end up creating views so that I could actually pull this information. And what it means is that when GraphQL, I expose the views to GraphQL, so there's a view context with just the views, and the context is made to look exactly the same, so the objects aren't planning items. View, they're planning items, right? Because to that context, they are the planning items. And with the Adalis specifications, no, not even with Adalis specification. With GraphQL, it means that if I don't, because I can still join the views, right? I do get that benefit of it only querying what it needs. So I am enjoying using GraphQL for this sort of stuff. Yeah, because that's all my that's my endpoints for query. That's it. So the entire application so far is that. Um, and the context is that. So they're not lazy loaded proxies. They're included by the fact that I asked for them in the query now. So to answer your question, I'm ahead of the task of regular work. Having no meetings this week and a lot of spare time to learn stuff. So this week will be great. Nice. Nice. I'm hoping my week will be great this week. Okay, so let's go in here. We'll go in to see if this breaks. We make a change in this. What we should expect to see is a planning item change appear. That's a weird one. That is a weird one. Oh, it's created. That's why. That was a create. It finally got the create message. That's what happened. So if I make a change, let's say we move this back to 0729. Obviously startup time. So that moves that down here. We should eventually get. Yeah, there's a change. There's a change. I'm pretty sure I changed the review date. Oh, I don't have the snapshots. I lost databases, didn't I? Yeah, I lost databases. So to the system, that's actually it's an update. Either way, need to check one more thing. Bright white screen incoming, rabbit in the queue. No dark mode. Super secure. So we did not get the message. Is the problem there? So our notifications consumers is running. But we do not have that queue. That's a challenge. Although, hold on. Did I hit an item that I'm subscribed to is the next question. So let's go into the UI again. And we'll say I care about this. Right. So that means a subscription now exists for that entity, right? That's what that means. So if I go to notifications here, DBO tables, right? That's that subscription. Okay, so I wasn't subscribed to it. Now we go back in here and change this to be Helen. Did we get a notification? Okay, so we did track at least assigned user. That's a good thing. We tracked assigned user date, right? So planning out changes did happen. We did not get there though. So let's have a look. Oh, that's the view. What are you complaining about? Invalid object name planning item. Interesting. Services, notifications, consumer. So this did not. This did not consume. So let's have a look and see what our consumer groups looks like. LS notifications integration. Offset 1. It's lagged by 1. So it's subscribed to planning item changes. That's what that means, right? And it's got a lag of 1. So it hasn't actually updated that message yet. So the question becomes, why? Why? Let's restart the service and see what happens. It could have errored and just hidden it. Lag. See the lag there? Now, if it fails, hold on. No, planning item change receiver is there. You still lagged? No, that's what it did it. Oh, there you go. Just taking its sweet time to catch up. So that goes into the application. Processing changes. And again, right now, this is a straight through. Ultimately, this won't be a straight through. This will be a first we figure out how you want to be notified, and then I'm kind of thinking about either I'm not sure I want to introduce some sort of layering where you say, okay, well, I'll subscribe to this item. I also subscribe to this item when it's changed. I think they kind of no, they won't, because I'd say I kind of care about all planning items, or I care about this one planning item with these scenarios, right? So, yeah. Why didn't you get in there? Process planning item change. Excuse you, what? Why didn't you get in there? Await sender dot send. Did this break? Is this erroring and I'm not seeing it? It's in async await, but it should still, it can still throw the exception out. Might behave differently, but it should. Should work, right? Start that one again. Notifications consumers. Oh, but now it won't process. So that's an entirely different challenge. So either way, we've got to change that. We can get it working. So it did mark it as processed. So it moved on from that item. So what I need to do there is I need to go back to the consumer group, go to this, update offsets. And on this one, I want to say offset 1. Come on. It takes a while for Kafka to relinquish access to the partitions. And if I keep hitting it, it'll keep popping them on top. So that's why I'm refreshing. There you go. So now when I restart Kafka, it'll start from message 1. So that was a lag of 2. So let's start notifications consumers. We hit there. Our event should look correct. There's our change. Changes last updated. Yeah. Oh. Oh. That's just going away. I think that it is creating confusion. I think that needs to go there. That goes away. I think that should work. Oh. Oh. Record. That still works. The only thing that is there. Don't believe that's the problem. We'll make sure. Just moving it inside of the record. I just made it an object to make it easy to see, but or not. Add media. There's no mediator configuration required. I'm not doing anything drastic here. So in here, mediator configuration is because I have an outbox. I don't need an outbox in this case. I just need this line, which is what that's doing. So this is the add mediator. So what's so wrong about that? So let's go and do var command equals that and send command. Okay, we still got a message to process. So let's run that. So if you're new to the stream, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I am currently trying to debug a messaging strangeness. You are more than welcome to ask questions. I'm happy to talk about the software, share what I'm doing. Okay, so our command is constructive without any challenges. Process planning item change command. Process planning item change. Why do you not get there? What have I done wrong? Oh, hold on. Nope, that's there. That's all configured. Because this works. That worked. I mean, I don't need them anymore. We'll get around to that afterwards. Add Kafka, add database. Use service bus X. That's kind of needed. But that's not. That's not going to make a difference there. Update offsets, this one, 1. Yeah, come on. Completing rebalance. Update offsets. There you go. I don't think that should stop it though. Unless it was failing silently. It was failing silently. So we have 1 subscription. Okay. So what we should see now, there you go, user inbox. So our target is planning item. Our identifier is this one. This is our unique message identifier, not a, yeah, I probably want to put message identifier there. Who we're sending it to, who the sender is. So in this case, I'm sending it to myself, and the date, time, and then everything else. Okay, so that's cool. I'm not sure. Yeah, no expiration. Probably would want to put expiration in there eventually, but we'll come around to that as a refinement once we start to learn more about using a RabbitMQ and MassTransit. But nice. So we have 2 messages. Obviously, um, yeah, there's message 2. And I suppose while there's one there that's not red, I'd DQ these so that they wouldn't actually just keep spamming the user. So if I went in and got a bug, or in this case, I got a bunch of messages come through at once, I wouldn't say, oh, by the way, there's 50,000 messages for this object. Okay, but we do have progress there. This part is, by the way, producing the notifications piece. I think we will, however, layer in dot where s dot subscriber identifier not equal to command dot source user. So where we are not the creator of this event, right? And I'm not going to write a unit test around this piece particularly right this second because this piece is going to change massively. Okay. Similarly, we need to now get rid of the planning item and user from here because we don't need them, right? Our context doesn't need them. And our configuration doesn't need that. This doesn't need that. And I think I like that more. So now that can actually all go away, which makes this much easier. So they can go away. Now this doesn't need that. It keeps this cleaner. Go. Okay, commands. Notifications will send to will not send notification to self. Oh no. Subscriber is sender. Okay. Push. So I think very much the goal here is to make this some failed tests. My planning items. Yeah, we can actually get rid of them. Spent all that time writing unit tests for that to happen. That's why we should never write unit tests. Joking. Concerning planning item subscription, when you subscribe to planning item, and again, I don't want. It's tempting to try and take a bit of time to write tests around this, but the reality is this is going to change a great deal, and this is the simplest possible form. I'm just testing the components here to say, okay, can I get a notification? In reality, the other side of this is the inbox, and that's going to be the piece I'll focus on now. And then when that's in place, I can now kind of build upon these. Don't need unit tests, you don't write bad code. Then I need a lot of unit tests. I don't know how I slept, but it wasn't good. Yeah. So remove unnecessary, removing tests, integrating. It's funny. I need to get into a habit of writing really clear commit messages, because when you're writing, if you're writing a monolith, your commit messages generally have context because they are within the monolith. But I mean, it's not perfect either way. But here, because I'm committing to the repository and I could be talking to one of a dozen different components, generic messages don't really help very much. I've tried Copilot a few times. It does write some meaningful things, but it makes things up. Especially with this project, it makes a lot of things up. So, yeah. You're considering my feeling on leaving lies in the code. Lies in the commit messages are even worse. But it's AI. It's got all the answers, right? Does it make PHP up? I don't think you can make PHP up. Okay. So we validated that it will run. We validated that it will produce the message. I think that's actually all I need for this particular story to say this one was done. Insert in Dapper. Consumer changes, send to user inbox. Planning items. Users necessary. Change design to leave. So there's a few pieces to this. Right. Well, there's a lot of pieces to this. The subscription as a user, should button something subscribe. When I log in on the plan dashboard, you see the inbox. When I click on a change, it should be presented with the details of what changed. When I've read a change, it should no longer show. When I've read a message, just because these are, how do I put it? Okay, this is a big problem I have with planning in general. From a product perspective, they go off what they can see. When it comes to technical requirements, which we do have technical requirements, they generally either do one of two things. They find the UI aspect and it becomes a big story, or they go and talk to the developers and developers put in highly technical stories. And we're like, oh, well, they've got to have a business, a value to the customer. They've got to have value. They've got to have value. Therefore, you can't just have a technical story. And I think that's really restrictive. Because a technical story such as getting the ability to track these notifications now and building up a notification for the user is a technical component, but there is a view aspect to it. So like the inbox, right? The way I'm thinking about doing this, because I know that PrimeMG is going to go into light mode first. So I'll bring it up in dark mode and then bring it over. What I'm thinking about here is actually, maybe it's not this one that I'm thinking about using. Data view. I don't think, I'm thinking that it's not really, it's not timeline. Like, apologies for the white screen. I can't help this one because it's Tailwind UI.com. At least it's a little less washed out. Data display. Actually, I've been through this before. Ooh, we got some new ones. Nice. Saved. No, not that one. Show all. Is it toggle track? Maybe. Where are you? I had notes. I swear I had notes. Flows. That's what I had. Yeah, here we go. So what I'm thinking about is, no, that works for the changes, doesn't it? That works better for changes. I was kind of thinking, considering that design but I think that is a timeline, and I think that works well for changes, but it doesn't work well for inbox because the inbox is a disparate thing, right? Uh, Sana, Sierra. Reich, versatile and robust project management software. Rating 1 star. Interesting. I mean, it looks like the same product I just looked at. Adding a project location from view project detail, editing workflow, changing project status. I had to drop for work. Thank you for the stream as always. Apex, thank you very much for coming and hanging out. You getting back to streaming anytime soon? Or have I just missed streams? I plan to meet with the other project members tomorrow after work. Nice. It's always about time. Yep. Okay. Well, have a great day at work. So again, when I'm using mobbing, I'm not looking to copy what other people are doing. I'm looking for inspiration as to how they achieve things. Thursday, Saturdays might be good. Saturdays are good. Yeah, timeline style changes. Yeah, so I don't necessarily think I want to go with a traditional inbox, but anyway, that's another problem that I should have not have diverted myself to because I'm just procrastinating again. So again, there's a technical aspect and there's a visual aspect to this thing. So if you take it as a slice, right, then I have to consume all the events from the inbox. I have to store them. I have to create the view. I have to create all the stuff in between into GraphQL. And then I have to go to the client side and I have to build all the UI components. So to me, those can be developed independently. So if they can be developed independently, they can be separate stories because you don't want a workflow would be to have two branches against the same story. So if you say, okay, well, it's got a UI requirement, it's got UI and server, then those two pieces can be worked on in parallel, but they might not be. And oftentimes in teams I've worked in, they're not parallel. They're serial, and it makes that story go on for a week. If you've got the organization structure to break it up so that someone's working on the UI and someone's working on the back end side, then yeah, maybe it's 3 points from each part. But sizing it is hard. So I go back and forth on it. But either way, I think that having stories that have to sit with value, I think everything has value if it's moving the system forward. So let's 27 files changed. We did new projects. We did not finish yet because we need to remove some stuff, don't we? We go to notifications. Planning and users do not exist anymore. We do not want that sitting there, blurring the lines. Remove scripts for unnecessary tables, users, planning items. Commit and push. And we need to not open more windows. More windows are not necessary. What am I doing? Oh, that's what I was going to do. I was going to go and make sure they dropped out of there as well, just to make sure that I don't have them set up. I would mediator be there? I've set mediator up somewhere there. Hey, Deathpacks, how you doing? How's things going? So we end up with 25 files changed. That's better. So we end up with the send command. We have the process planning item change for right now. We have the subscription spec commands. We no longer need this. Notifications, the main. We don't need that. Hey, Napalm, how's things? Okay, it builds necessary supporting interface notifications. Again, gotta be. I'm trying to be mindful of the fact that I've got to merge this, and I should be telling me where changes were made relative to the overall system. And that is about to start. I do apologize. Okay. So some progress made today overall. I think it's solid. Yeah, that's that one. We don't need that. Subscribe to planning item, file rename without changes. Yeah. That one. Entity type. Yeah, that's so we can, this is so we can represent cleaner. Share kernel, folder includes services, fair enough. Database configuration. These are see dispatching consumer service plus, yeah. There's our program. Distributed systems, fun stuff. Absolutely. Yeah. This is currently what it looks like. Or rather, that's the message flow. That's more what it looks like. So it's getting there. I know a lot of this in the Azure ecosystem lately at work. Yeah, I haven't had the fortune to do this in the cloud stuff. So this is using Kafka as kind of the backbone of everything. So the client has the API gateway. So these are individual APIs. So these are all different components of the system. So it's modular monolith, not microservices. When data changes in these, they publish integration events. The integration events are published to Kafka. The view consumes them. So my GraphQL API over here is built off of those Kafka events. And again, they all go through the gateway. Changes in notifications also subscribed. So yeah. And communications for, yeah. So overall, it's working. Um, yeah, I'm gonna wait for that ad to end just to summarize the stream. I think we're in a good place right now. Service bus, MassTransit. Yeah, yeah. For self-hosted, I would choose Kafka for sure. So I am using a service bus as well. I'm using MassTransit with RabbitMQ. So there are different pieces to the application. So I use Kafka for data integration so that I'm not broadcasting. It's not an event in terms of this thing happened, right? I use Kafka to say, here's the current state of this data, very much so. So like changes or the current object state. So I'm using Kafka to kind of produce data that one or more systems can just consume and handle. So the state of the system is being published with Kafka. When I need direct behaviors, I'm using MassTransit with RabbitMQ to send commands because again, you want that disconnect. I don't want HTTP APIs between my view and my notifications, but I'm going to send a command. The view is going to be the subscriber to that command, the consumer of that command rather. I could lean into using eventing in Service Bus as well to broadcast wider things have happened, but right now I don't need to do that. So this is using MassTransit with RabbitMQ and Kafka, MongoDB, SQL Server, GraphQL, also out for Git API Gateway. So there's a lot of stuff going on right this second, but it is coming together pretty well. And it feels right. The data feels like is in the right places. The data flows feel comfortable. The client, again using that API gateway is, yeah. I wouldn't go back to any other way right now in that respect. So what I worked on today is getting the notifications triggering when the changes the user can subscribe to notifications about an object. Simplest form of the subscription right this second. When those changes are identified, the notification system triggers a command send to user inbox. And then the view tomorrow, I'll get working, or later today, I'll get working on the consumption of that to create the inbox. And then the GraphQL view will get exposed and the client will be able to consume that view. So it is working, it's coming together. Bit by bit, day by day, we get there with a little bit more. But we are now at 68 projects. It's getting a little bit challenging to juggle. We'll get there. So we just did that code review. We're going to merge that. And then that means tomorrow is a fresh start on a fresh branch. And yeah. Thank you for the follow, Navsar. Welcome in. So as always, this project is an open source. I do open source components of it. The Kafka components are open source. There are libraries there. I'm always happy to talk about it. I'm always happy to chat about it. If you're interested in knowing more, if you're interested in asking more questions, the Discord is there. And you can hop in if you want to and ask a bit more. I'm happy to discuss things. But yeah, it's moving. So tomorrow, what we'll work on is, hopefully tomorrow we'll get to see the list of notifications appearing in the UI. That would be my goal for tomorrow's stream. So that by the time we get to the end of tomorrow's stream, we should be able to say, hey, this thing changed. Oh, and by the way, here's your notification. And we'll actually probably lean into the GraphQL subscriptions a little bit more so that that happens in real time. And there's not a a poll or a query that's required. That way we can lean into notifications as well. So yeah. But unfortunately, I have a job that, kind of keeps the roof over my head. As much as I love streaming and working on this, I'm not getting retirement off this. So we're gonna raid my hey, how do you feel about using a Mac for .NET development? I'm planning on buying a laptop and I'm wondering if I'm safe with a MacBook Pro. That's key employment, yeah. I mean, Macs are, I do some of the .NET development stuff on a Mac. But viable as a platform. You are paying a lot more for the same equipment, so you could get if you're not moving around, if you actually do need the mobility of a laptop, you could get a lot more power in a Windows laptop, which, depending on what you're trying to build, but overall .NET development is feasible on a Mac. Again, if I was static, I am static. I don't need a laptop. I'd actually consider. I actually just bought a mini PC. So for $500, I got a Ryzen 6900HX with 32 gig of memory and a terabyte hard drive and it's like that can be attached to the back of my monitor if I wanted to be. That'd be perfect platform for development. Plasma Simulator been waiting years for ARM support. Yeah, so I suppose there are pieces that are challenging. But for this stuff, I could do all this stuff that I'm building on a Mac. But again, the resources, if you look at my resource usage, I'm at 60 gig of memory used to do what I'm doing here with all the development environments open and stuff. So yeah, that in a Mac would bankrupt you. Sorry, just being a little bit salty over that pricing. The pricing is excessive, and that does make it a little bit of harder challenge. But yeah, definitely consider it. But anyway, I'm going to raid 4 bots because it's Monday. Yeah, I have 32 gig in my work MacBook. But we're going to raid over to 4 bots. It is a Monday, and 4 bots. 4bots is a game dev, so it's a bit different. But he is a nice guy, a lot of fun. Yeah, that's why Rider cross-platform. Morning Trap. Thank you for coming hanging out. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll get the inbox done, and yeah, we'll continue on. So thank you all. Take care. Oh, by the way, if you haven't yet, don't forget one more line the stream later today. So check him out. That's where I'll be later on. In the meantime, let's go see 4bots. Thank you very much, all. Take care. Have a great day. Bye. Stream Deck comes today. I hope.